so welcome to my favourite books of the year of 2017. Like, I've got some great books to share with you, so let's get straight into it. And as usual, if you want to get your hands on any of these books, they'll be linked in the description bar below. At number 11, I have Gotham Sirens Book 1. This is a massive volume. Well, they don't call it a volume, do they? This is a book. This has, how many does it have? 1 to 13 issues in there. Sorry about the glare. This is fantastic. It has Catwoman, it has Harley Quinn, and it has Poison Ivy. These kind of like goodies slash baddies, the kind of like anti-heroes. They are fantastic. I love it so much. I'm really excited for the idea of the film coming out. I don't think this gets enough credit. I think there are so many comics out there that get much higher praise, like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, when actually these are just as good. So if you like comic books, then please check this out because this is fantastic. At number 10, I have They Fought in the Fields, The Women's Land Army, The Story of a Forgotten Victory by Nicola Tullis. Hope I pronounced that correctly. This book I was actually sent from the publisher, which is History Press, so thanks for sending it me. I loved it. I used it to help me with my video, So You Want to Be a World War II Land Girl, which I'll link up top somewhere. I loved doing that video. I loved reading about these women who were just fantastic. This book is a mixture of factual information about being a land girl, but also like case studies sort of thing where Nicola's gone and interviewed actual land girls to talk about their experience. There's also lots of pictures in here too. Here we are. As you can see, I've tabbed it because I just really enjoyed it. It was just an absolute pleasure to read. I whizzed through it in one sitting. Fantastic. Then at number 9, I think, we have The Private Lives of the Tudors, Undiscovering the Secrets of Britain's Greatest Dynasty by Tracy Borman. I love a bit of Tracy Borman. Last year, her book, King's Mistress, Queen's Servant, which was The Life and Times of Henrietta Howard, got to my number 1 spot. This year, I have Her Private Lives of the Tudors in my favourite books. This is magnificent. It is all the little nitty-gritty things about the Tudors. So she starts with Henry VII and she goes through the Tudor monarchs and talks about things like what they had for breakfast, how they brushed their teeth, how many dresses Elizabeth has in her wardrobe, all this little nitty-gritty information. I loved that little bit because you don't get them in usual kind of non-fiction books. It was an absolute pleasure to read, and I actually really want to reread this really soon because there's so much information you can't take it in all one go. So fantastic. And Tracy Borman's writing is just so completely addictive as ever. In at number 8, I have Bridget Jones's Baby, The Diaries by Helen Fielding. This for me is the best Bridget Jones book out there. So we have Bridget Jones's Diary, which I gave 3 stars, Bridget Jones' The Edge of Reason, which I gave 4 stars, and then this one, which I gave 5 stars. Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy, I absolutely detested. I tried to read it about 10 times. I got part way through, and then I just didn't finish it. I gave it to charity. I pretend that book does not exist. This book is fantastic. This is so warm, so funny, so witty. If you've seen the film but haven't read the book, please read the book because the book is better, in my personal opinion. I wish the film had done what's in the book, so it's a little bit different because in the film we have Mark Darcy and Jack. In the book we have Mark Darcy and Daniel Cleaver. And lots of people were saying, oh, but she's gone back to Daniel Cleaver again. It's just like, well, she's Bridget Jones, she makes mistakes, and that's the point of her, that's why we love her. This was so warm and witty and I loved it so much. It is just fantastic. It was my favourite kind of women's fiction book of the year, and every time I tried to pick up a new chick lit, I couldn't do it because all I wanted to do was reread this. You know, it's fantastic, it's amazing, I love it so much, and I really want to reread this and then rewatch the film. Just fantastic. And also Colin Firth, yes. So next up I have Crampton Hodnett by Barbara Pym. I don't know how to pronounce the name of this book, but I just love it. Her writing style is incredible. She's one of my favourite authors of all time. I love her work so much. So this book is about a woman called Miss Dodgett. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly either. And she kind of fills her days by giving tea parties to academics. It's all set in that kind of Oxford theme. She's got a niece who's in love with someone, and it all goes a bit pear-shaped, and it's just the typical kind of Barbara Pym book where there's a lot of characters but they all interlink, and I adore it. It's just fantastic. It's kind of a slower paced book, and sometimes you feel like not a lot is happening, but actually everything's happening because her writing style's happening, and it's just glorious. If you like Barbara Pym's writing style, you'll like this. Ta-da. At number 6, I have Elizabeth's Rival by Nicola Tullis. This is a beautiful book, as you can see. I've done a whole review of this, which I'll link up top. This is a non-fiction work about the life of Lettice, who was Elizabeth's rival. Now, Lettice and Elizabeth are related, and they are rivals in love for the hand of Robert Dudley. And of course, it all goes a little bit pear-shaped. This is a fantastic book telling the story of Lettice. Lettice is someone who really needs to have her story told, and it's told in this magnificent way. I love Nicola's writing style. For me, I get excited about her books just purely for her writing, and I loved it. It's brilliant. Last year, Crown of Blood was in my favourites. This year, her new book, which is Elizabeth's Rival, is in here too. I love it so much. Please go and read it. So we're into the top 5 now, and in at the number 5 slot is Giant Days. This is a comic book series, and I don't actually mean Giant Days, this one, volume 6, I mean all of them, because I read all of them this year. I love this. This is a comic book series. I'll show you the art style. Here it is. It's magnificent. It's beautiful. It's about 3 girls and their time at university. It's as simple as that. Each issue takes things like, you know, some small things that happen at uni, like freshers flu, or going into your halls, or getting into your new student housing, etc, etc. It talks about drugs, alcohol, obviously work, all the things that you expect as life as a student. I love it. I adore it. It's very much me and humour. It's kind of like that silly kind of slapsticky type humour. I love it so much. It's my favourite comic book series. And actually, these are the only kind of books that I buy brand new. I don't buy many books at all anymore, but this is the one that I do. I don't pre-order it. I just get it on the day that I know it's released. I'm like, let's go, go, go. I love it so much, and I cannot recommend it enough. I adore Giant Days. Amazing. In at number 4, I have a really big book. This is Catherine of Aragon, An Intimate Life of Henry VIII's True Wife by Amy Licence. Again, I've done a full review of this one. I love this book. Amy Licence is a terrific historian. She writes in a way where she's so passionate about it, but also trying to obviously get you to learn and engage with said person. I adore it so much. I thought it was absolutely magnificent. Despite the fact that it's a really big book, I did completely whiz through it. I was so transfixed and just transported back to Catherine's time, and it was like I was living this life alongside her. I loved it so much. Can I recommend it enough? No, I can't. It's brilliant. Go read it. Okay, so we're into my top 3 books now. In at number 3, I have Catherine Howard, The Tragic Story of Henry VIII's Fifth Queen by Josephine Wilkinson. This, again, I've done a full review of, and I loved this book so much. This is a full-length biography of Catherine Howard. However, the reason why I love it so much is because this book made me go through my shelves and get rid of a load of books. It made me realise that actually you don't need too much historical fiction in your life when you have non-fiction that is this good. When you have non-fiction that is so engaging, so much like telling the story, you know, Josephine does have that storyteller element to her work. I felt like reading this book, I was uncovering the real Catherine Howard, which I hadn't uncovered before in books. I feel like Catherine Howard is someone who is completely misunderstood, and people really don't understand her story, and it was really nice to see the evidence used in, for me, the correct way. And there unfortunately isn't too much evidence that we have about Catherine Howard because she wasn't around for that long. And it's nice that Josephine Wilkinson hasn't just gone, oh yeah, so she must have been this, she must have been that, like filling in the blanks of the evidence, and she's actually gone, this is the evidence, therefore this is who she is. And I love that about it. I love the fact that we've uncovered, or started to uncover, the real Catherine Howard, and people can discover them for herself. So please go and read this book if you're a fan of the Tudor period. I thought it was absolutely magnificent, and oh, I just loved it. It's so good. It's so good. Me and this book are best friends. Okay, so my second favourite book of 2017 and my favourite non-fiction book of the year was The Fall of Anne Boleyn, A Countdown by Claridge Way. This book really took me by surprise. I was very kindly sent this from the publisher, and it was a book that had been on my wish list for an awfully long time, but I just hadn't got round to buying it because, as you know, I don't really buy that many books. And when I received this, I was so happy, but I didn't understand how much I would love this book. Again, I've done a full review of it, and this book is so different to the normal books out there on Anne Boleyn. It is a countdown. So we have the days leading up to her execution. So for instance, the date, 30th of April 1536, a royal argument and the first arrest, etc, etc. It goes like that. So it goes in the days, what happens on such and such date, who is involved, etc. I adored it. It was so different, and just Claire's basically got the evidence and shoved it in front of you, and then you can make your own judgment about who is responsible for the fall of Anne Boleyn. I can't recommend it enough. It's amazing. It's brilliant. Claire does have her own input at the back where she says, you know, what her views are, which I think is magnificent, because most non-fiction books, they're all biased. Okay, so the historian's got their point of view, and that's what they're pushing forward. This one's a bit different because Claire gives you all the information and then she gives her theories at the back behind it. So although it appears very biased, actually she's very open and upfront and honest about her opinions, rather than all other non-fiction is actually kind of hidden because it's what them are just pushing it. This is the story that I'm interpreting, if that makes sense. I adored it. I can't recommend it enough. Please go and get this. It's magnificent. Ta-da! Okay, finally, my favourite book of 2017. Drumroll please. It is To Bed with Grand Music by Margarita Lasky. I still can't pronounce that name. This is a book that I read fairly late on. I read in November, December. I'm not quite sure. It was featured in my Persephone book reviews. I love this so much. This is about a woman called Deborah and her husband at the beginning, her husband goes off to do some war work abroad. She is kind of bored with her life. She lives in the country, she's got a young child, so she goes off to London to do something a bit more worthwhile, a bit more substantial. She goes and lives with a friend who her husband isn't too keen on. He thinks that she's a woman of a bit more loose morals and loose living, and here is our protagonist Deborah getting into the swing of that sort of lifestyle. It's about fidelity during the Second World War, and I loved it. This is a really important book for myself and my family. We have emotional attachments to this book, and that's probably why it's my favourite book. And it's so nice to have a book that is just the reality for a lot of people. War was a very difficult time because, let's be honest, during war you don't know if you're going to live from one day to the next, so people did live rather differently. There are a lot of children that were born out of wedlock and were either, you know, sent for adoption or kept in the family, or were put in the family but as someone else's child, sort of thing. And it was something that a lot of people were ashamed of when they shouldn't be, because I mean today we're completely different about it. But it's so nice to have a book that's actually the reality for a lot of people. I'm not saying for all, but for a lot of people, this was the reality of war. You know, the kind of partying, the drinking, the meeting different people. You know, she meets a lot of soldiers, as you expect. She meets a lot of people that are from like America, or etc. And it's just a magnificent book. It's fantastic. It hit me in the feels, put it that way. I adored it, completely adored it. Couldn't read anything else while I was reading this. Had a book hangover after this. Oh, I love it so much. It's so good, and I can see why it went out of print, because I think after the war people wouldn't want to read this sort of thing. People want to brush it under the carpet. But I'm so glad that Persephone had brought it back into the light, because it's absolutely magnificent. So that's it. Those are my favourite books of 2017. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of my favourite books. Do you agree with me? Any of these tickle your fancy? Let me know in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to get your hands on any of them, I'll link them in the description bar as always. So that's it for this video. Take care, and I shall see you soon for the next one. Bye!